Michael Jackson is alive and well. Michael Jackson is alive. Is Michael Jackson still alive? These are real articles or postings online because a lot of people refuse to believe Michael Jackson actually died. After an insanely successful career, selling over 1 billion records worldwide and performing at places like the 1993 Super Bowl or his Dangerous Tour, where he sold over 3.5 million tickets, Michael Jackson sadly passed from acute propofol intoxication. Or did he? Many have a hard time believing Jackson's death was real, between the countless lookalikes and impersonators. Michael Jackson began his legendary music career at the young age of only 5 years old. His father, Joe Jackson, believes his kids could make it big time in the music industry, and after beginning the Jackson 5 with his siblings and a few close friends, he was right. Over the band's first 4 years alone, they were signed to 2 record labels, Steeltown and Motown, and debuted with 4 consecutive Billboard #1 hits, I Want You Back, ABC, The Love You Save, and I'll Be There. Throughout their initial 9-year lifespan, from 1964 to 1973, they received tremendous levels of fame, and by today, selling over 100 million records and being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as of 1997. Although the group did fall apart due to Michael's siblings and self wanting to pursue solo careers, the band undoubtedly helped launch Michael to his eventual superstardom. Michael had the best-selling album of all time, Thriller, selling around 70 million copies worldwide, but I don't even think I need to mention metrics for you to know he's an icon. He's a household name. If you haven't heard of him, then you must be living under a rock. Anyways, after his insanely successful career, he tragically passed away on June 25th, 2009. The Los Angeles County coroner classified Jackson's death as a homicide, determining that Jackson died from acute propofol intoxication exacerbated by the anxiolytic lorazepam, and less significantly, midazolam, diazepam, lidocaine, and ephedrine. In simpler terms, he had cardiac arrest due to what many refer to as a deadly cocktail. He died at Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center after emergency services performed CPR on him for 42 minutes straight. After his passing, many fans of his simply refused to believe he's dead. And yes, this may be in part simple denial, but they still aren't all crazy. According to Tracy Whitney on Quora, his death certificate wasn't signed by anyone at UCLA, and it doesn't state his legal name, Michael Joe Jackson. There was also a smoke alarm at UCLA, and the entire floor where Jackson was supposedly had to be evacuated. The time of death and official announcement was also made by Jermaine, his sibling, not one of the UCLA doctors. In fact, all the announcements concerning his death were made by family members. LaToya was one who said Michael's brain was being held for autopsy. Why his brain, I ask? So odd, and to this day, no one knows where the hell his body actually is. The closed casket. He didn't die in a fire. He wasn't disfigured. He was perfectly okay. According to the footage of him, this is taken only 2 days before his alleged death. Why the closed casket? Wouldn't the world want to see their beloved Michael one last time? Especially after the family paid thousands of dollars for a special made burial outfit. Jermaine, by the way, is a very convincing actor, known for his eloquence and being able to cry on cue. The surveillance tapes and all surveillance records of Michael's rented mansion were destroyed and erased, as Jermaine stated during an interview. Now, why would Michael rent a mansion for $100K a month? Much better would be to buy a house and use the money to pay for a mortgage, I'd say, but it would be stupid to fake his own death at a property that belongs to me, so I guess that's okay. Some say his death certificate is the wrong name, but his full legal name is Michael Joe Jackson, but it states the death certificate that Michael Joseph Jackson is dead, so I'm not sure about this. The Department of Health that controls the births and deaths does not accept AKA or alias names. The amount of propofol found in the alleged corpse was impossibly too high. Propofol is eliminated very quickly in a living, breathing body, which is why during surgery, the anesthesiologist must administer the sedative the entire time. The only way that much propofol could exist in a body is if said body was already dead. The punctures on the corpse were consistent with the punctures needed to freeze a corpse, as needed in psychosis. Now, I can't seem to confirm all the information on here, but for one, his full name does seem to have been Michael Joseph Jackson, so I don't know what she was talking about in that sense, and some other stuff checks out, some doesn't. It's kind of confusing, but I can confirm Tracy is not the only person with these suspicions.
I was on the way back, in fact, from Yankee Stadium, where I went to a Red Sox-Yankees game, which the Red Sox did win. I will get that on the record Sunday night. And a guy comes into the subway car I'm in, and it kind of looks like Michael Jackson in the sense that they have the pants and the white shirt, and they have the hair that's kind of been, the permed type thing that Michael Jackson had in the early 90s. And the guy has glasses and generally has a Michael Jackson-esque look. And they had a piece of luggage with them. And what I assumed was that it was a subway performer. And there are many subway performers that do Michael Jackson stuff. And what they bring on is not a suitcase, but rather it's like a portable music machine. They start the song, they do their Michael Jackson dance in the subway, and then they walk around trying to collect change or a couple of dollars from people. I assumed that that's what it was. However, when the guy got on, I realized that he had headphones on and that he didn't really seem to be performing. So I looked more closely and I looked at his face, and it was a man who had had significant plastic surgery. And much of that plastic surgery made him look like Michael Jackson. And when I say like Michael Jackson, I don't mean a little bit like Michael Jackson. I mean like Michael Jackson. I looked more closely and I noticed that his hands had multiple colors. In other words, there were multiple skin tones on his hands, in the same way that someone who has vitiligo, which Michael Jackson at least claimed to have as the reason why he dyed his skin white. And I started to get a little bit confused. And then the guy started dancing, not paying attention to what others were doing, not being a subway performer, but he was just standing there and snapping his fingers and kind of bopping up and down and dancing to whatever he was listening to in his headphones. I can only assume it was Michael Jackson music. I, for a second, thought that I had entered some alternate reality, and it actually crossed my mind, Lewis, that maybe Michael Jackson didn't really die and was on that subway, and it was all a big conspiracy. I mean, it was so identical to Michael Jackson. This man was so identical to Michael Jackson that the thought crossed my mind. And then immediately I said to myself, David, that's ridiculous. It's far more likely that you're just dreaming that Michael Jackson is alive and you're going to wake up any second. And I never woke up. Clearly, I wasn't dreaming. Completely bizarre and surreal experience. And I actually now, after the fact, I've been thinking maybe the guy was in some kind of accident and chose to have his facial reconstruction done to look like Michael Jackson. But then I thought that doesn't really make that much sense either. Maybe this is someone who has decided to pursue plastic surgery, and I have to say, not the best quality plastic surgery that I've seen, to look like Michael Jackson. I've never seen anything like it, and I still have no idea what I even saw.
As highlighted in the comments of this video, believing he's out there is by no means uncommon. I live in NYC as well, and one time I was walking to Subway and I saw an MJ figure, and so I came closer and asked if he is Michael Jackson, and he just winks. I don't know anything more because it was a long time ago, and I was like 11. I saw he had gloves and a mask and a hat, but since I'm a moonwalker, I kinda knew it. He had MJ shows and white socks and a black suit with a white closed shirt. Looked like a T. That's how much I remember. But he had tape as well. That's it. That's as much as I remember. Don't ask anymore. Just saying that I probably saw him. But I do know that he is alive. He is alive and well. I know for a fact. I think Michael is still alive. One thing I would like to just argue is if he faked his death, why would he put himself back in the public spotlight and ride public transit and do all this crazy stuff that's out in public? Like, if someone faked their death, I would think that they would want to live a private rest of their life. But in the same breath, he is so famous that if he did fake his death and he's out there somewhere living, no one's gonna actually think it's him. I mean, sure, people are gonna think it's him, whatever, but government, people like that, they're not gonna be like, oh, it's him, you know? They're gonna be like, oh, it's just an impersonator, because he's so famous that there are so many impersonators. So it wouldn't actually be that hard for him to get away with it. I mean, there are a ton of insanely obsessed Michael Jackson fans that have gotten surgery, plastic surgery, to look just like him. So it honestly wouldn't be that crazy if one of them was him. And he died right among the allegations of him molesting and sexually abusing children. Came more into the spotlight and heightened, so maybe he just wanted to get out while he was on top, and still loved by music fans across the world. I mean, as they say, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain. Obviously, not all fans think this way, but many do, and confidently so. It can't help that at his public memorial, his casket was empty. No body, not even ashes. Although these suspicions aren't completely invalid, they're definitely not fully grounded. I mean, sure, they have evidence, but I'm sure that could be misconstrued, or it could have been misunderstood in some way, shape, or form. Aside from that, it's a lot of he said, she said with some cosplayers. Oh, and that empty casket I mentioned earlier? Well, Katherine Jackson, Michael's mother, claimed to have decided to not put his body inside the casket because she was afraid of the possibility that some deranged, obsessed fan would steal his body. So instead, she supposedly had him privately cremated. The coroner also confirmed it was Michael Jackson who died, and Michael's once personal doctor, Conrad Murray, the one who overdosed Jackson on propofol, was charged with involuntary manslaughter and ended up serving around 2 years in prison. If Michael wasn't actually killed, then time wouldn't have actually been served, but sadly, it was. Even with all this evidence, belief on him being alive out there is still extremely common, but as I mentioned earlier, it seems like a lack of any solid proof. But what does seem to have more ground to stand on is why he may have died. Apparently, his family alleged that Michael's doctor over-medicated him so he'd be able to get back on stage and perform to make more money, and he was working on a 50-show comeback tour. This is it at the time. So that kind of checks out. They may have not thought it through and believed that the more medicine we give him, the faster the healing process. Although he wasn't injured or sick. Propofol is a relaxation medication that prior to his death, Jackson was taking every night for 2 months to help him get a better sleep by treating his insomnia. Nevertheless, the other, him living, conspiracy theory is truly insane, and although confusing, it simultaneously seems to make a lot of sense. He sadly most likely isn't with us today, but the fact is that not everything has facts or solid grounding to support it, but that doesn't stop the belief and the hope that he's out there. The hope that it's not just some random plastic surgery obsessed cosplayer. It's him. Actually him. R.I.P. Unless he's alive and watching this, in which case, hi Michael.